Declan McCullagh, he's been coming on the show for close to a decade, was the senior correspondent for CBS News website. He's one of the head guys over at CNET News. He's written for Wired magazine as their Washington bureau chief. He, of course, also has written articles for the Harvard Journal Law and Public Policy. It just goes on and on. Playboy magazine, you name it. And he's one of the leading experts on the full spectrum of what's happening with the internet, surveillance, cybersecurity, shutdowns of websites like Cryptome, all these calls for censorship that are going on. And he's been fighting it. So we're really honored to have him with us for the next 40 minutes or so. And we're going to have Jason Burmis at the 33 After pop in briefly with the actual cybersecurity House bill that passed to go over some of the subsections with Declan McCullagh for all the PrisonPlanet.tv viewers and, of course, the radio listeners. Declan, it's great to have you here with us.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Well, a lot's going on, obviously. What should we get into first? I mean, it looks like they're making their move to start clamping down on the Internet.
Well, let's start with what's happening this week, which is probably the largest Internet computer security conference in the world. It's taking place about a block from where I am here in San Francisco. It's called RSA, after the computer security company of the same name. And yesterday, you had a White House advisor, Obama's cybersecurity coordinator called Howard Schmidt, speak there about a secret cybersecurity directive that's in effect and is now a little bit more public.
And you've been at some of these meetings recently.
Yeah, there's. Well, let me talk about yesterday's speech. This is Howard Schmidt, who's the White House cybersecurity coordinator, and the background is that 2 years ago, President Bush signed a secret cybersecurity directive. It's known as NSPD 54 for National Security Presidential Directive 54. Never been released. The government's acknowledged that it exists, but the text has never been made public. You had Michael Chertoff once call it a Manhattan Project for the Internet. It's a multi-billion-dollar fund for it as part of the classified intelligence budget. I've heard numbers like 30 or 40 billion, which is huge. And also one component of it is a network monitoring component called Einstein, which is aimed at monitoring people who go to federal government websites, but there have been concerns about how far that monitoring by the Einstein program goes, and also whether that would be expanded to the private sector websites.
Well, remember the Cash for Clunkers program. You would go to the Cash for Clunkers program, and there'd be a message: the federal government has taken over your computer. It is now owned by them. We are tracking everything you're doing. I mean, that really freaked people out.
You do have a good memory for that. That didn't even come to mind this time around. But yeah, there's what happened is that the government said, "Oh, this is just this is a problem. We won't do this again." But there's the interesting thing about this is that yesterday, if you go to whitehouse.gov/cybersecurity, you'll see a 3-page or 5-page summary of this secret Bush-era directive. And the summary says that Obama basically supports what President Bush is doing on cybersecurity. So this is not something that's different between the administrations. And
that's not a surprise. He's basically continued everything Bush has done.
There's not a whole lot of daylight between them on many issues. There's bailouts, terrorism, and so on. But on cybersecurity, the interesting thing is that it's 12 points. And one point says that we want to expand this Einstein program to involve the National Security Agency. And of course, this is the same NSA that was engaged in warrantless surveillance. It might still be engaged in warrantless surveillance. And the second point is that Homeland Security wants to, quote, extend the cybersecurity into critical infrastructure, and that basically means the Internet, because nowadays the government views the Internet as critical.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have the bill, and coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to go over it with you, but it talks about going into all of the Internet service providers, that they have to have a licensed person that's federally approved, that they're going to track what everybody's doing, that you have to basically have their software initiatives in middle school, high school, college, creating an army of cybersecurity warriors. We know the government's surveilling people without warrants. They're tracking email. They're tracking cell phones. I mean, they're all over the map.
Well, we can talk about cell phone tracking if you want to change the topic.
No. Continue with cybersecurity. Continue.
Well, we should talk about this. This is actually probably more interesting than cybersecurity, but let's continue. So the interesting thing about the cybersecurity plan is the potential for NSA monitoring or Homeland Security / NSA monitoring of the private sector. And you had, when this was Bush and when this was the Bush administration running things at DHS, you had a lot of complaints from members of Congress. This is probably a partisan issue, but you had folks like, let's see.
You had Barack Obama running around screaming bloody murder about the Patriot Act and warrantless surveillance, and then now that he's in power, he's reauthorized it.
I won't dig into my notes then, but let me just state this as facts from memory, and your listeners can prove me wrong. That back when this was the Bush folks doing this, the Democratic Congress was yelling about there's not enough information about the secret directive, and who knows what Einstein is going to do, and maybe there are privacy issues, and let's just put the brakes on this whole project, if not slowing it down completely. And now that it's the Obama administration renewing what the Bush folks started, and actually even saying nice things about Bush in this document that the White House posted on whitehouse.gov/cybersecurity yesterday, you do not hear any yelling from the Democrats in Congress. Maybe it'll happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So anyway, we'll see more about this.
Well, Declan, hold on just a minute, though, so people understand this. I saw a bunch of headlines today saying White House press release doesn't explain anything. What are the secret directives? But then if you read the bill they've passed in the House that's now in the Senate, I mean, it's incredibly draconian. And you've had cybersecurity people come out and say it's the Pentagon and Air Force and NSA basically overtaking the Internet and putting in the type of snooping hubs they put into the telecommunication systems after the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So we do know quite a bit of what's going on. I mean, but do we have any idea of what the secret directive is?
And the answer is no. We only have a few hints from administration members, both Bush and Obama, saying that this is the single largest request for funds in last year's classified intelligence budget, for instance. Now, think of this. The single largest request for funds in the NSA and the CIA and Defense Intelligence Agency and all these other black organizations, the single largest request for funds, this is a lot of money, folks. And we know virtually nothing about it. All we have is a very vague summary, and we don't even know if the summary adequately represents what's in the entire document. I mean, it only might cover 10% of this secret NSPD 54 directive, for instance. And so basically, we have a tidbit or two from the White House, but we don't have very much information to go on. Most of it is still secret and classified. Well,
let's expand on that, though. The biggest classified funding request they put out in the last year. But separately, we saw congressional hearings 2 years ago about censoring conspiracy theories and other criticisms of the government on the web. We see Cass Sunstein, the regulations czar, writing public papers saying basically, restrict criticism, restrict global warming conspiracy theories, that it isn't man-made. ClimateGate's a conspiracy theory, even when it's admitted. And he talks about cyber armies out posing as alternative media to cause infighting, COINTELPRO type stuff. So we know they've got CENTCOM and others out blogging and writing their own reports and encountering, quote, disinformation on the web. So I think a lot of evidence points towards this is massive funding, not just for the snooping and control grid, but also as a way to put more boots on the ground in cyberspace, pushing the establishment line.
It be. And this is the problem. I mean, look, if you're going to defend the federal government networks, I mean, what this means is it's the same thing that they, Google.com or Yahoo.com have to deal with all the time. People trying to break into the servers and read your Gmail or Yahoo mail. And you don't need to make how you defend against that secret. It doesn't have to be classified. It doesn't have to be the single largest request for funds in last year's classified intelligence budget. It's a bit of a mystery about where exactly these tens of billions of dollars are being spent on. I mean, NASA's budget, by comparison, is only about $6 billion a year, and NASA does a lot with that. Maybe 5, but.